nothing on this slide that the audience hasn't already been told, so I will move on to my next one. This is about the mechanics of the course, so this is particularly important for the students. There's going to be 10 sessions over the next 2 weeks. You've already received readings for the 10 sessions. We will let you know at the end of each lecture what it is important to read for the next one. Some of the readings that we provided, it would be nice if you read, but it's not absolutely necessary. It pretty much depends on how educated you want to become. But some of the readings are important, and we will let you know what you should read. There's also going to be tutorials and demonstrations, and of course laboratory exercises where you will be exposed to some of the paradigms that will be discussed in class, and also we'll learn some skills in some workshops. Some of the tutorials will involve student groups, reading, discussing, and presenting papers, and we will provide these when needed. For the whole course, there's I have 3, we'll call it intellectual heroes. They've sort of all been mentioned. Well, 2 of them have been mentioned already a little bit. Donald Hebb, Donald Broadbent, and Michael Posner. I'm not going to say a lot about them now. I'll just mention that Hebb played a very important role in the middle of the 20th century in steering psychology in a more fruitful direction. And he spent most of his career at McGill University in Montreal, but he had graduated as an undergraduate from Dalhousie. He grew up in my home province of Nova Scotia, and when he retired from McGill in 1977, when I was a young assistant professor, he came back to Nova Scotia and was appointed as an honorary professor, so I got to know him personally. Donald Broadbent is highlighted throughout the course because of his seminal contributions to the study of attention, particularly which started at a time when studying concepts like attention was not popular. And Michael Posner, as was noted earlier in Ramesh's remarks, played a very important role in advancing both cognitive psychology and specifically the study of attention. And he was my PhD supervisor, so I was very influenced by him. I'm going to start with an example to highlight the importance of attention. So this is not about the history, but rather the importance. And I think if I press a button, it might start. I hope that you haven't all seen this before. So see if you can spot the card trick. We don't have audio, so I'm going to stop for a minute, see what I can find something wrong. Like not turning it on. No, it's okay. I think maybe I just didn't turn it on. We'll start again. I think it's on now. I pushed the button, but not far enough.
Hi, I'm Richard. This is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card. Blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the 3 of diamonds.
The 3 of diamonds, okay, excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table. Give a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising, what's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs. And that is the amazing colour changing card trick. Hi, I'm Richard, this is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card trick with this blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the three of diamonds.
The three of diamonds, okay, excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table. Do a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising. What's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs. And that is the amazing colour changing card trick.
Raise your hand if you've seen that before. Good. Because some of these things some of these things are fairly widely viewed on the internet. Raise your hand if you saw all four of those changes. I don't mean saw them happen, but noticed that they had happened. Did anyone see any change? I'm sorry, notice any changes? Okay, a few of you. I could guess what they were, but we're not going to talk about that now. Maybe later. So the message here is, first of all, there was subterfuge in what the videographer was doing. All of the changes happened off camera. So had the changes been happening on camera, like they did in the second wider view of the video, you would have all seen them happen. But someone's wearing a shirt, we come back and see them with another shirt, and we actually don't notice the difference. Why? Because the locus of our attention was not on what people were wearing or what the tablecloth was or what the background was. The locus of our attention was on the cards and trying to figure out the card trick. So now that's one aspect of attention that we'll be talking about in the class, but I wanted to use this as an example to highlight how important attention is. What we are attending is like the gateway to our experience, and this controls what we see, hear, feel. It controls what gets recorded into memory. And because memory is so important for who we are, attention therefore becomes critically important for how we develop and what we become as people. It's an image I couldn't resist showing you, because now we're going to talk about history. Now, it's sort of my version of the history. I hope it's okay. For as long as mankind has been capable of thinking, how the mind works has been a puzzle that's been of great interest. For thousands of years, minds contemplating mind was a purview of philosophers. Much of the writings of Western philosophers, and I have to say that I know very little about Eastern philosophy, such as Plato and Aristotle, were on this topic. Hundreds of years ago, the British philosophers, Hartley, Hume, Locke, and others, were concerned with the nature and origins of knowledge and thought, and they converged on these three principles that I think were summarized by E.G. Boring as atomism, connectionism, and empiricism. Atomism refers to the notion that there are basic elements, ideas, sensations, and images. Connectionism, that they get combined through something akin to mental chemistry into more complex thoughts. And empiricism was the notion that our knowledge comes from our experience. Here's an example of Hartley's mental chemistry. I'll just read this, but you can read along. He says any sensations, A, B, C, that's capital A, B, C, etc., being associated with one another a sufficient number of times, get such power over the corresponding ideas, little a, b, c, etc., that any one of these sensations, when impressed alone, shall be able to excite in the mind the ideas of the rest. It was in the 1800s that scientists, most of whom were trained in medicine and or physiology, turned their attention to this domain of philosophy, and the modern science of psychology was born. Indeed, E.G. Boring, who I just mentioned, describes modern psychological science as the offspring of a metaphorical marriage between British philosophy and German physiology. We'll talk a little bit more about history, the early history.